always treat your channel, whether it's a reseller or a distributor, whatever model it is, treat them as if they work for the company. You're not selling to the customer, you're selling to that vendor and to that reseller, and it's building that relationship with them. It's a relationship sale all the way.
What advice would you have for anyone thinking about being a guest on a podcast?
Just be who you are, be credible. Because if you try and put a persona up, people will just see through it. Try your best not to write a script or preempt what you're going to talk about. The key thing any host is looking for is...
Stewart Townsend, welcome to the show.
Hey Ryan, thanks for having me on this beautiful, glorious, sunny day in England. Of course not, it's June. Why would it be sunny in England?
Listen, let's start off with something pretty spicy. Let's get straight into it. You've got some pretty interesting thoughts on using AppSumo and other lifetime deal websites in order to launch your business. What are your thoughts on those?
It's funny actually because last week I had a conversation with some. Well, I'm going to be a long-winded response to this, but actually last week I met a chap I got introduced to that was actually the founder of a lifetime deal that I bought 3 years ago. Ironically enough, and we were having this conversation, and I candidly asked him. So, apologies, Noah. AppSumo is awesome. I know it's awesome. It's launched a lot of startups, and there's no issue there. But again, I think it comes back to sort of his viewpoint is those lifetime deals are great for initial cash flow around that, and it gets you kick started off, and it gets you moving. And they always had a percentage of, they knew that, I don't know, say 20% would keep using the app and 80% wouldn't, and that sort of thing. The challenge is contractually now, they've tried the upsell, the cross-sell, the downsell, left sell, and all that sort of thing, and that's not happened. But contractually, they still have to deliver. Now, in their case, because they've now added some new terms to their contracts, and I suppose a lot of people could do this as well, is if you've not logged in for 3 months, your account isn't deleted. It's just turned off some of the processing capabilities around that. So there's that side. I think, it's a great sort of marketing platform to get you out there. It's just that obligation you have. And what we've seen lately, and not just AppSumo, there's lots of different sites that do lifetime deals now, is copy clone companies that set up production plants in some offshore country somewhere. And when AI came along, if I see another AI writer, I'm literally probably just going to shoot myself because it is like AI writer Stu, and literally they're just taking some template code, writing it, right, stick it on there. And it doesn't necessarily make the main sort of AppSumo or lifetime deal pages, but it starts to congest those software apps out there are really good. So I bought Phrase on AppSumo years ago, and that's been great. And then I bought an add-on which I don't actually need, and that's been awesome. But then people came and copied it, and then it was like, oh, we've got every version of Phrase under the sun. We've got every version of Jasper AI. Now there's and it starts to, I suppose, devalue those products that are really good, and you get that sort of aspect from it as well. So, it's one of those. There's pros and cons to lifetime deals on both sides of the fence. There's definitely a need for it for getting cash flow quickly for young companies, but I think because with the whole sort of trend and emergence of AI so quickly sort of rising and being rapid, it's caused a pain point of just software that's been pushed out there that is not really that good, or if it is, it's okay, but then it disappears after a year or so, or you don't have access to it anymore. So it's a tough one because there's a place for it, but also people have to recognize that there is an impact. You're not getting 100% of that revenue for one thing. You have an obligation to serve those customers, and it may kickstart you a little bit. But if you're, like I was talking to a chap last week about his service, and it's very demanding on AI credits, and go to Google, go to Microsoft, but you're going to burn through those sort of Azure type and cloud credits really quickly. So you still have to have a pricing model, a unit model that makes sense. And I think what happens is people get excited, go and put a lifetime deal on, and don't actually do their unit model finances and go, this wasn't a good idea, was it? are giving away X amount of credits for like, $99 for a lifetime deal per month, and it costs us more than that. So there's some simple basic maths. So it's a bit of a rant and a rave. I've sort of, pros and cons on either side, but it's just great to launch. But you need to think a lot more behind it. And AppSumo have got a great team there now that do help manage and all that, and they've matured into a product that sort of is a pipeline for it. But then there's sort of negative sides to it as well.
I think so. So I had Andy from Hike SEO on a little while back, and he was talking about. So they launched on AppSumo. So basically, it's an SEO tool for.
It may have been the company I was speaking to.
May have been, yeah. Andy's great, and we had a really good chat about this stuff too. But basically, the way they used AppSumo was as a stepping stone into an angel round. So that enabled them to get a lot of traction, a lot of feedback really quickly. They got an inflow of cash, which enabled them to go full time, which meant that they were able to accelerate a lot of things. So their plan was, not just to rely on the AppSumo launch itself, but to use it to propel into something else. I don't know if you've spoken to Rob Gelb from, he does a lot of things now. He launched Hey Summit on AppSumo, did really well out of it. And he said a similar thing. He said, the audience on AppSumo may or may not be your actual ICP, so just bear that in mind. If it is, great. If it's not, then you get an influx of customers. You'll get some feedback quickly. Just bear in mind that it may not be the perfect feedback that you want because they're not, the perfect ICP that you want to target. But it does give you a bunch of cash flow quickly, and then you can use that cash flow to build out your team a little bit more, accelerate the product a little bit more, maybe raise some more money if you're going to go down that path. But also, if you've got a plan to convert those lifetime deals into recurring revenue, you've got some upsell, you've got some path that you've thought about in place, then it can work out really well. The biggest pitfall he was talking about was just that a lot of founders are unprepared for the support requirements as well. Because suddenly you've got to support people all around the world, 24 hours a day. And if it's just you and your co-founder sitting there on live chat all day, you're not going to get anything else done. So I think a lot of people don't anticipate how much work is going to be involved in that either.
That was the conversation we're having. They soon learned very quickly about customer support and tickets, sort of Zendeskian style, not like, oh, we've got 500 emails. How do we respond to this? It's like, oh my God, no. But funny enough, again, timing wise, literally this morning I bought, it's AppSumo day. So I bought a product on there because you got, £1 million discount or whatever. And their support and their onboarding has been flipping amazing, literally like a professional company. Maybe a bit too much because I've had a WhatsApp message and an email. But straight away they're going help support. If you can help us do a review and you like the product, whether it's positive or negative, we'll upscale you. Customer support, here's how to reach us, and I was like, right. So that preparation definitely pays off.
Which product was that, out of curiosity?
It was a growth email, GoZen growth. Yeah, so it's like email campaign marketing tool, warm up emails, etc., all that sort of thing. Because he used to have MailerLite, and MailerLite suddenly just turned us off and deleted our thousands of subscribers. Thanks, MailerLite. Great. That's customer service. But literally, I'd signed up for it, and then I got my onboarding email. I got a WhatsApp message. I've gone back to their support, asked a couple of questions already, got some responses, booked an onboarding session, and then they reached out as well and said, about the review side, we'll up your credits, or we'll give you some incentive. Perfect. So they've got a plan, executed it brilliantly, because they knew, well, obviously they prepared, knowing that this day everybody's going to be smashing it, going 20% discounting for a Plus member. Yeah.
I think too, we get so conditioned to expecting crappy onboarding and crappy support. When you actually find a company that does it well, it's like, oh, it's a pleasant surprise. So that's why I was saying, if you want, it's not naming and shaming, it's naming and praising, I suppose. Is
yeah, when it's done really well, you're like, wow, that was brilliant. What an experience. And straight away, I was like, oh, positive. Yeah, I'm happy with this product out the gate. But yeah, I think it is that prep, but also I think it's down to, the platforms also filtering out. And so we don't have AIwriter.co.com.org. whatever, because Yeah, there's only so much of that you can take.
Number 37 in that category.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Listen, let's zoom out a little bit. Let's talk about you and your business specifically. So tell me, what is PodcastHawk and who is it for?
Yeah. So PodcastHawk is essentially an automation platform to get you booked, like me, on podcasts from that side as a guest. So it's not aimed at hosts or sort of your side of the fence. It's aimed at people that could be book authors, masterminds, consultants, marketing agencies, that sort of thing, that have got clients. And it's a platform that lets you search podcasts and then automates the campaign, the outreach emails to the podcast host. So the idea is save a load of research time, only find podcasts that actually got episodes that are live, not from 4 years ago that haven't broadcast, and then send the emails out based on, did we get a response? No, let's keep on messaging it. And not spammy emails like 4 emails, we control that aspect. But it's through a client's email address as well. It's not through ours, it's through them. So it's really simple. It just saves hours upon hours of time to do that.
How did you come up with the idea?
It's a joint idea, but we came at it from different ways. So my business partner, Ray, this could only happen in our world, Ryan. So I've never met Ray in person. We've been in the same room, apparently, in 2019. In 2019, we've been in the same room, but we've never physically met. So he's in another mastermind group. And we were essentially, he had a product, and I was talking to him about helping him understand how to take that market through channel partners and resellers and that sort of aspect. He'd never sort of come across that world before. And we were just talking about data and podcast and nerdy stuff sort of thing. And I was like, I've been looking at this idea, but I've been trying to work out how to do it. And he's like, it's all similar to what I've been doing, but I've done it because I can do it. He can code a little bit. So we sort of came at it and smashed together that way. And his pain point was, a classic pain point was, he's still got a business which is teaching languages, and he wanted to promote that business. So the standard thing is, let's do some blog posts on LinkedIn and social, and let's do all this stuff, and let's do webinars and all that. And he's quite introvert. He doesn't like to go and stand up on stage, but he's got some good stories about travel and language and things like that. So he started to get some podcasts, but he found it a real pain because of that whole aspect of, I'll find some podcasts. Okay, I'll go and search. It's a couple of years ago, so there was listen notes at the time, which was really expensive. Or I'll look through Apple Podcasts. Then I'll find some and I'll make a list. And then, actually, no, they haven't had a show for 2 years, so I'll start again. And I came at it from a way of, I wanted to look at the data on podcast guests and the impact it was having on their business or their reach and social network from that side, with the aspect of then getting some more metadata and using it as a marketing platform. So we sort of came together and smashed it together, and that's how it came about. Two different viewpoints, but the same sort of goal in a sense.
How did you get initial traction for it? Like, where did you get your first few customers from?
So the first few were through the mastermind, through the other group that we're part of, and it was basically Ray and me just reaching out, going, "Hey, we want some people to come and test it. You're all sort of nerdy people and you like to promote yourselves, and you've been on podcasts," because the whole group's based around the podcast. So we did it that way, and then it very quickly became word of mouth of them going into their networks and going, "Hey, I'm on podcasts. Check me out." It's like, how do you do that? Type of thing. So it became reciprocal then of like, "Oh yeah, you've been on a podcast. Oh, I'd like to be on a podcast," type of thing. So that's how it initially started. So, and also traction came through doing personal onboarding as well. A little bit like the company I was talking about today is literally, you've signed up, or Ray would get an introduction, or I would, and then we'd do an onboarding session. And then say to them at the end, right, okay, put your credit card in, you get a bit of a trial, it's ready to go, sort of thing. So it was very much, it was limited in the functionality. Obviously, it was an MVP at the time, so it wasn't what it is now. But it was still the same aspect of, do you get what I've just shown you? You can filter all these podcasts and you can reach out to them. Yeah.
Is there a secret? So if you're a guest on a podcast, I think a lot of people watching this or listening to this have thought about being a guest on podcasts, but don't necessarily know about how to to go about getting on there in the first place, but B, what to say or how to present themselves on that podcast to get the most kind of value out of it. What advice would you have for anyone thinking about being a guest on a podcast?
The key thing any host is looking for is you respect their audience. So you've got something that, because it's not it's not no disrespect to you, it's not your podcast, it is your podcast, but it's your audience's podcast, and that's the key thing. It's like, right, okay, you're bringing guests on to share insights, so the key thing is you respect that and understand who that audience is, and do you have a really good story to tell? Because the best will in the world, you could be, I always say Vodafone, I don't know why, I'm not even a customer of theirs, but you could be the CEO of Vodafone, but you've got no, that's great, you're the CEO of Vodafone, you call Bob, Brill, whatever, have you got a story to tell? No, I've been the CEO for 30 years, I've just done enterprise B2B and B2C, I don't really know what's happening in the real world. Your audience are not interested in that. What they want to hear about is, like my friend Nick, so I used to sell to him when I was at Sun Microsystems. I then went to work for him when I left Sun, and he'd done TweetMe, which he'd then sold the licenses, the platform to Twitter to get access to build DataSift. He then exited DataSift, set up another company. Now he's a touring car driver, and he set up another software company. So he's been through that battlefield. It's those sort of stories, isn't it? That's the sort of thing your audience want to hear about. Is how did you do that? How did you get there? So the key area is have a really good story, an interesting thing to tell that's of value to that audience. If it isn't, just don't bother applying, or think of a different aspect that you could bring as a perspective to it. That's the key for any.
I think that's really good advice. Like I've been on both sides of it. I've done a fair bit of public speaking, and I've also had, we bring people into the StartupSauce community to run workshops and expert talks and stuff like that. And it's amazing how many, like I had a guy once say, "Oh yeah, just Google that," and I felt like kicking him. I was like, "Look, if they could just Google it, people have given up an hour of their time to come and listen to you give some insights. If they could just Google it, they wouldn't be here. They're looking for something they can't just Google. Don't tell people to just Google
Yeah.
it." So I don't know what the research is, but I do remember reading some research that says storytelling is a really powerful way to communicate an idea or a concept because it sticks in people's brains. You can spit out some facts and it'll go in one ear, sounds great, but it'll go out the other ear really, really quickly. But if you weave it into a story, especially something that happened to you, or a personal story or a true story, for some reason that seems to stick in people's minds a bit more, and they're able to recall it later. So, absolutely, I think storytelling is a really, really powerful medium. And I think podcasts are probably the best medium for telling stories or getting people to share their stories that convey some insights that they can then go out and apply in their life or in their business later on. Fantastic advice.
The key thing I also say about that as well is that story, but also audio builds trust. Your voice builds trust. So if you're, again, trying to promote something and you write a blog post saying, "Hey, I'm Stewart from PodcastHawk and we're the best platform ever and it's great," people are like, "Oh, great, whatever." If I go on a platform and people can see I'm passionate about it and I'm behind it and talk about it, the audio builds that trust with it. It's those key things. Tell the story, but I always say to people, just be who you are, be credible. Because if you try and put a persona up, people will just see through it. Even if it's through the audio, you can just tell, can't you? It's a human instinct that we have.
I think for a lot of SaaS founders too, so many categories of SaaS now are just completely crowded. So they're saturated. So there's a whole bunch of, like you were talking about the AI writers before, there are lots of different products selling effectively the same thing that does with the same feature set, more or less at the same price. So how do you stand out? And a really good way to do that is the whole personal branding thing.
Yeah.
So you want to show some personality. You want to show who you are, because at the end of the day, people, okay, I have 17 different options, but I like that guy. That guy seems like he knows what he's talking about. That seems like the kind of guy who's really passionate about it, really excited about it. I think that's the guy I want to buy from. Have you noticed something like that when people have been
Yeah,
on podcasts?
yeah, definitely. It's sort of. And going back to like Jasper AI, I can't remember the chap's name because I'm over 50 and I can't remember my own name. But he's 6'7" inches, something ridiculous. Again, he did webinars at the start of Jasper pre-investment, and everybody just remembered him because he was just like bouncy, typical American, lots of energy and everything, but just memorable. It's like, oh, I'll buy in Jasper. And they weren't buying Jasper, they were buying into what he was saying, what the product could do and everything. And you see that, you hear that a lot on podcasts when you're listening to interviews. It's either people are really into it or they're just turned up and just monotone and like, yeah, whatever. And I do HR software. It's like, God, no, delete that episode. Don't do that. Please don't try and use that anywhere, sort of thing. But it definitely works.
How should you, if you're going on your very first podcast, like how should you structure it? Say you've got an hour, you got an hour booked in for the podcast. Like, do you, in preparing for that, do you say, oh, okay, I'm going to tell this story about this. I'm going to, how should you prepare for it, and how much should you be talking about? How much education should you be doing versus how much promotion should you be doing? How do you get that balance right?
Yeah, so part of the business, we have an agency as well, which is mainly about getting people booked on podcasts from a sales perspective, so a call to action. And as part of that, what we tend to, we send them the pre-show sort of cheat sheet booklet sort of thing. So it's more about, not about them, but who the host is, typical customers, questions that have been asked, that sort of thing. But what we say, because we do sort of, I call it press training, because again, I'm over 50, aren't I? It's that audio, public speaking training, etc. Because it doesn't matter whether this video goes out or not, you're still there as audio. And we talk to them just about, be aware of at least what the podcast is about and who the audience is and some of the questions that have been asked. But try your best not to write a script or preempt what you're going to talk about, because the most interesting, engaging podcasts are ones that just free flow and just go down natural sort of curves type of things, where it's not scripted answers, it's just connotations that you think, oh, right, okay, great. I just remember this story, it was from last week or it was from 2 years ago. So I always say that to anybody is be prepared, but in a respectful way of who's the person you're talking to, who their audience is, and at least what's the title of the podcast and what their objective is, so that you can then naturally sort of respond to it and have a conversation about it. Because many a time, it's funny, sort of, it does get asked in my onboarding of like, shall I write a bit of a script and some response answers and stuff? It's like, you're not going to telly. It's not something that you're going to get shot for. And if it's something, most hosts will say, if there's something that you don't like, we can edit it out. If you said something and said, oh, I shouldn't have said that, I've just, they'll edit it out. It's that. Otherwise, it just becomes, dull.
And at the end of a podcast, so this was something that I think a few people have thought about. I did a lot of press releases for a previous business, and I was expecting that to translate directly into sales. And I had a mentor say, no. The reason you do this is just to get eyeballs on your website. And what you want to do is you want to capture as many email addresses as possible. So rather than promoting your product or service, what you want to do is go down the path of promoting like a lead magnet or something I can download or something, get on my email list or capture their contact information. As a call to action, like what are your thoughts on that? Should there be a call to action at the end of the podcast? If you're the guest, should you be trying to promote a lead magnet? Should you be trying to promote your business, your product or service? Should you have some kind of discount or special offer that you're promoting? Like, what do you do at the end of a podcast to take some of the people who are listening or watching and get them kind of into your universe?
So there's multiple answers to that. And the simple sort of political answer, which gets you out of jail, is it depends on what you're doing. So we Podcast Wolf with the agency business. When we're talking to clients, it's literally, we'll say, set up a templated landing page that says X, Y, Z. It's got a standard message, but then tailor that for each podcast. So when you're doing a call to action, so at the end of it, it's like, right, okay, thanks for being on the podcast today. It's been it's been amazing. Thanks to the audience. The audience get directed to a landing page that is promoting a lead magnet or whatever it is that you've said you're giving away that's relevant to them. I think that's one key element, because then it's bespoke. It feels like, there's a transition. And as a host, it's promoting their podcast again because it gets surfaced and people go, oh yeah, StartupSauce, oh there's a podcast, great, oh brilliant, yeah, it's that sort of thing. So that's one key area, is do something a little bit. I'd always say keep it customized based on that, and be respectful of the host in terms of, again, the audience. So it may just be it's a marketing push message. So I go on podcast and I just say, I'm from PodcastHawk. I'm not pushing the product, but here I am. It's like when it used to be at Sun, when I ran and built a startup program, I didn't talk. I used to get the startups to talk because the audience already knew I'm trying to sell them some servers and hardware and software. But I'm there. I've sponsored it. So it's the same with a podcast. People know why you're there. I think the key element we talk about anyway is getting that backlink. So whether it's to a landing page or to your main page or whatever it may be, and it's a call to action, it's getting a backlink, not just in the podcast description, but if that podcast has a high domain authority website, it's getting lots of traffic and lots of traffic pointing at it, getting a backlink on there back to your main page, back to your website, so you can get that sort of linked use from it. That's the key aspect, most definitely.
Oh, that's something really interesting, because I know I had a conversation the other day. So someone was new to SEO and they were saying it's really hard to get backlinks. Everything that I've read said you just do guest posting, but when I've tried doing guest posting, people are now asking me to pay money to submit an article that I had to spend money to create in the first place, and it feels like this is a really uphill battle. Is getting on podcasts, is that a bit of a shortcut to getting some quality backlinks as well, or is that one of the benefits that you might also that maybe people don't think about?
It's a benefit that people don't think about. So that's the rationale we set the company up for, was to help people understand. And we do a really bad messaging job about this, because when I had that conversation with the AppSumo chap, the AppSumo SaaS company called Hike, he said, yeah, I didn't get it. We've just had a conversation. I said, I know, because we haven't messaged it on there, because it's hard enough educating people about being a guest. And then you've got to try and explain domain authority and backlinks. It suddenly blows their mind. So what we do in our data is we augment it against a couple of other sources that bring in domain authority and page ranking. So basically, in simpleton terms, because I'm not an SEO guy by any means, it's like, how many high quality links are pointing at that website? So I always put it as the aspect of, you may just start being a guest on podcasts, and you start on those podcasts that may have had 10 or 15 episodes and they've got some traction. But the trend could be like, you haven't done a podcast before, Ryan, but suddenly you start to do a podcast, but your website's getting 1 million hits a month. I want my website linked on there somewhere. I want my backlink to come from there, because Google's going to go, oh, this is a high quality link. It's a similar content. It's done entrepreneurship and startups. Oh yeah, we love that. And it's that aspect. So I tend to not think or push or ask a host for sort of, can I do a call to action? It's like, do you want me to give an offer away? Is it something like that? Or what I prefer is actually, do you have an area on your site that has the podcast on there with a description that has a link component in there? That's what I want. Great. Okay. Yeah, I can do that for you. Perfect. That's what I'm looking for. I'm sort of going through that aspect, and even getting a backlink on sort of lower ranking sites. It's not necessarily on Anchor, Spotify, and all that. It's on that stewarttownsend.com/podcast type of, that doesn't exist, by the way, but it's on that page, because that'll naturally get organic traffic over time as well. And it's a whole lot easier than going, oh, let's go and help a reporter out and let's try and get on whatever. And then suddenly it's like, oh, yeah, that's great. I've got a little article there and a link, but it's a no follow link, or it's whatever it is. And or yeah, suddenly I can get some links on this site, but I've got to pay $2,000 a month to get these. And it's like, yeah, it's not relevant sites either.
So there you go. Good little hack there. If you're looking for backlinks and you've got a bit of charisma, you're good in front of a camera or good at talking, maybe that's an alternative pathway to building some backlinks, as opposed to, doing that uphill grind of guest posting plus, having to pay for backlink placement and everything else. Let's go backtrack a little bit. So you mentioned that you met your you met your co-founder. You still haven't physically met your co-founder, but you got connected, got talking about stuff. You also mentioned Sun Microsystems. What is the path in life that led you to starting PodcastHawk in the first place?
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting path. So I spent 10 years selling steel, which was very exciting, I can tell you. Very
This
exciting.
is how most startup stories begin. I
Exactly.
spent a
It's,
decade selling steel. Yeah.
exactly. You look at 20-year-olds now and they've got their own business and doing millions. They didn't sell steel. But yeah, and whilst I was there, it was like I'd sort of, I was 20, I think it was about 25, just had my son. And it was like, I can't do this forever. This is just like, no disrespect to it. It just wasn't me sort of thing. Um, so I put myself through university, got a degree, got my HNC and stuff, got my master's, blah, blah, blah. And Sun at the time were taking on, it was their last graduate program. So I was 30 when I joined their graduate program with a bunch of 21-year-olds out of university who wanted to go and party all the time. And I spent 12 to 14 years, I can never remember, at Sun. It's the best company ever. It really was. It's just a shame where it went financially. I can honestly say, hand on heart, I would be there now because it gave you the autonomy. So I created the first startup accelerator program. I hasten to add, I'm not big-headed about it, but it was like the first one out there. Microsoft came and followed us, but it was just we'd seen that I was out in the space in London. It's like, well, why are we not selling to Google? Why are we not selling to this thing called Facebook? Twitter was just about, and I went to Austin, and it's like, God, what's going on? And it it's like, oh, okay. Why are we not selling Unix into there? Why are we not selling Solaris? Why are we not selling our servers? Just come back with a plan then and create this job. So we did, created a whole team, had a global team. And then I was just building out our cloud program, and we deployed $2.5 to $3 million worth of kit in Vegas ready to go. But yeah, we weren't financially great, and Oracle bought us. I lasted a year at Oracle. Not from a bad sense. It just wasn't, they weren't into the sort of, by then I was like startup mode. I'd met Mark Zuckerberg. I'd met the Prime Minister. I met the Fonz. Oh yeah, met the Fonz. All these sort of people that you wouldn't normally get in corporate life, and Oracle was definitely not going down that route. And then I mentioned Nick Halstead before. I'd sold to Nick some hardware and supported him, and like I did a load of startups. And he'd always said, if you're looking for a job and you want to leave, we'll get the next round of investment. When I get it, you can come here and do whatever you do, because I've got 25 developers and no adults apart from me, and I can't be arsed being the adult. So I went with the idea of building out channel and resellers and marketing agencies to sort of take data sift to market. It ended up hiring salespeople, doing marketing, organising hackathons, getting pizza for developers at 11 o'clock at night because they had no ability of trying to ring a phone number because they were deep in C++ code and playing flipping games and stuff. And it was awesome. But what it did teach me really quickly was working at a startup is much harder than working at a corporate. I thought a corporate was hard. It wasn't mamsy-pamsy corporate. I was running a startup accelerator sort of type thing, and nobody got what I did, and there wasn't really that much support. Working for a company with 25 people, yeah, that's tough. I was doing demos with Japan at 11 o'clock at night in bed, waking up in the morning and getting in and not knowing what day it is and working out what we're doing, and but it was just that you could make decisions really quickly. It was awesome. And that sort of led me finally to my last sort of proper job, which is I built out the Zendesk channel team across Europe and the US pre-IPO. So we were 15 people in Europe and about 250 people globally. Stayed there for about 4 or 5 years. And then again, it just got to a size. It was starting to get to 1,500, 1,600 people post-IPO. And I got fed up. I live in Lancashire, sort of live in Middle Earth of England. And I was either on a plane or a train. I was away from home a lot. And it got to a point where I was getting divorced for the second time because I was never at home and stuff. And it was like, right, okay, what do I do now? And then I sort of fell into this world of, I set up my own little consultancy, helping B2B SaaS companies grow and scale through resellers and channel partners, explaining that to most founders who never come across it before, but saw it as a way of going indirect and growing that team. And then literally, like I say, part of this other mastermind group, always wanted to do something on my own or separate or with somebody. And me and Ray just had this random conversation and set up this software company. So I've really, been an interesting journey.
There's a few things I want to dig into there, especially the resellers and the channel partnerships, because I think a lot of startups that I talk to, they think, right, we need customers. Let's set up some Facebook ads. We'll do some SEO. Maybe we'll do some social media. Those are like the go-to things. And there's all these other ways of acquiring customers they just don't even really think about. So I want to ask you some questions about that in just a moment. But first, how did you meet Mark Zuckerberg and the Prime Minister? How did that come about?
Mark Zuckerberg was a lot easier. So in my more youthful days, not well, still now. So basically, I used to, and I still wear flowery shirts. Basically, so you've got to imagine I'm working at a large corporate with 500,000 trillion people working there. I've been selling to finance. So I've got a standard pinstripe banker's suit and such. Suddenly, I'm now in a world of where I'm going to speak to people like Last.fm and selling to Spotify and going to events and talking to people. So I'd said to my boss, I need to wear a different attire. I can't go to work in this shirt and tie thing. It's just not going to work. Last.fm thought, when I went to a meeting there, I thought I'd come and shut them down because I turned up in the suit. It was like the investor come and shut them down, no more money. They were just in panic stations. So I said, I'm just going to go to work in my jeans and my shirt. And this is in London, in the city. And it was very frowned upon. Literally, I can picture it now as I walked in. It was still but ironically enough, after about 18 months, people got it when we brought in a 5 million plus deal with Spotify for the first Thumper storage. It's like, get what you're doing now. Great. But I used to organise events with a couple of friends of mine. So Sam Sethi is big in the podcasting world. And we used to do these crazy things. And we set up the first screen. We basically hired a cinema in London for this first screening of the Facebook film, Social film. God, can't remember the name of it now.
Social Network, right?
Social Network.
Yeah.
That went down a storm. And in between that, we used to do what was called flowery tweet-ups. So you had to wear a flowery shirt, flowery dress, flowery knickers, whatever it was, to turn up to come at these events. And we had a strict door policy. And in between that, I used to host a lot of events at our office in London. And Mark Zuckerberg had come across it was when Facebook had first started, about 100 people in London, whatever. And he'd heard about this flowery tweet-up events, and he'd heard about that we were doing this like Facebook meetup, but in a flowery sort of sense. And he came along. And Sam, I was like, Sam, flipping Zuckerberg's there. And he's like, yeah, no, we're going to go and say hello and get a picture. I was like, yeah, come on then. So, and he was dead nice chap. He's wearing his like black t-shirt or whatever. And we're like, we're the organisers and we do this sort of thing. I know it's a bit random. You know, we're now doing the flowery Facebook sort of thing. We had the flowery tweet up and it's like, it's great. Yeah, love it. And yes, we got a picture and met him, chatted for about half an hour. Yeah, it was awesome.
I was gonna say, 'cause his entire wardrobe consists of the one kind of t-shirt, right? So so he wasn't wearing a flowery shirt. You couldn't get him to do that.
No, he definitely, yeah. No, we did say to him we could find him something alone, but he wasn't going there.
I was going to say, how seriously do you take this flowery shirt policy? Mark Zuckerberg walks in the door and you're like, sorry, mate, you're going to have to go. You're not dressed for this. Oh, geez, that's awesome. And the Prime Minister, like, how did that come about? Was that at the flowery shirt meetup as well?
No, that was a little bit more professional. That's quite a lot. That was when sort of the whole tech city was taking off, and they were trying to get an understanding of what was happening across not just London, but across the sort of growing and emerging startup sector in the UK. So there's a group of us that went there. I'd gone representing Sun, but also representing the Northwest because I live in the north of England. So I was the only sort of non-Londoner there that was going, there is life outside of London. And that was cool as well. We had nice drinks and stuff and that sort of thing. I was wearing a flowery shirt, got my pictures took. But it gave us access to, I think obviously the Sun name did as well, but it just, being in that sort of whole startup ecosystem at the time, there was a lot of generated interest from government departments, but also, I know it's sort of a bit left curve, I'm pushing to the right, is I used to bring some of the startup founders and companies into the enterprise sales team in Sun and go, right, okay, I'll get 50 of them in a room, come and tell them actually what's happening out there, because they sell into large, Citibank, Vodafone, in TSB, Lloyds, or whatever. Nobody's got any idea what is actually happening, how fast development's happening. So as salespeople, if you can go out and educate Citibank on what's happening across here, so Access Pay, startup based in Manchester, it's doing this, that, and the other, and it's solving this problem. And we could run it on Solaris, and we can do this, and we can do it really quickly. Or you could buy your standard enterprise solution. Let's deploy it in 2 years' time. The project's going to fail. It's going to cost you £1 billion. So I bring these young, nimble companies in to come and educate them on actually what the accelerated pace was happening in financial services and the healthcare, in sector specific, and that went down really well. We used to literally suddenly went from zero to hero because it was like, flipping out, this Stu knows what's going on. I had no idea what was going on. I knew 5% more than anybody else, but it was just bringing people together. That was all. It's literally bring them together, share that knowledge, and it just, it was a win-win situation. And again, that opened a lot of doors for me to go and sort of meet some industry type people. And well, basically, let's put it as it is: go for drinks, eat some food, go for more drinks, and just have a bit of conversation.
It's amazing how it does change the relationship a lot once you go out for drinks with people. I know that we live in the era of Zoom calls and everything else, but there is no substitute for going out and having a few beers with someone in my experience, in terms of if you actually want to establish a relationship with that person. But that sounds like it opened a lot of doors for you. Let's go back, and I want to get into something a little bit more tactical now. So you touched on channel partnerships and resellers, and I feel like that's a bit of a mystery to a lot of startup founders in general, but SaaS founders in particular. Can you talk us through step by step, like what is the difference between, like, how do channel partnerships work? And if you don't have one in place and you're thinking about setting up a program to do that, how do you go about doing it step by step?
So channel partnerships are really simple. People just put a complexity around it. So if you look at Microsoft, 95 to 98% of their revenue for software goes through channel partners. And the language is a little bit different in the US, but predominantly it's not a big direct sales team. It's a lot of channel managers managing big distribution partners. I think, if we look at what channel actually means, indirect sales, it's just what the word says is, rather than as a SaaS founder, I've got my founder, it's like, oh, we'll hire our first salesperson. Great, okay. He or she can only do so much. Like they can only make so many phone calls, or you get an SDR, they can only do so much. So it's that pod model, isn't it? Like you've got your pod of people, they can do so much. An indirect sales team is where you as a SaaS organization take your product out as a vendor and go, hey, Mr. Partner, would you like to sell my customer service solution? I'm Stewart from Zendesk. Maybe, yeah. Let's see if there's some thing we can do here. It's like, right, okay. I'm a Google Workspace partner. I've got thousands of customers. I sell thousands of seats. It's not competitive, but it's complementary. Because like we were saying before, I suddenly launched an AppSumo, I've got 500 emails, I've got no idea what's going on. My emails are all coming into Google Workspace, it's all just a mess, and I'm using labels. Or I could use this customer service platform. So in a nutshell, from a reseller model, a SaaS vendor can go out to a partner that sells into a complementary type of space and then get access to how many salespeople they've got. So they may have 3 people or 5 people or 10 people, and they have a portfolio of products. But now suddenly you've gone from one direct salesperson to, I've got 5 or 10 direct salespeople selling my product out to market. And the key aspect is, more than likely, they're going out to their existing customer base first. So it's warm leads. It's like, we're going to have a conversation. We've already got customers and we know where they're going to fit from that side. So it opens that up. There's the aspect of, people don't think of it this way, and I always sort of make a key point of it is, if you're looking to expand territory-wise, or you may have an existing customer base, you've got a reasonable level of MRR and ARR, and you're doing really well, and suddenly you get some customers in Australia. Awesome. I'm in London. How am I going to service those customers in Australia apart from staying up all day and all night? So maybe you implement a service and sales partner in Australia and go, I'm looking for a partner that can help manage my customers. So I'm going to, any leads that come in for APAC, I'm going to pass them back to you. You just manage them, you just sell to them. So it gives you geographical footprint expansion. There is a cost because you're giving margin away, but limited cost from that side. And then the third component is sort of a technical integration type of partnership, where it's like, actually, I'm going to build some partners that sit in the marketplace. So I'd like to build an integration with Zapier, with Shopify, or whoever it is, and it'll sit in that marketplace, and then technically it'll get pushed and promoted, and somebody may buy it. It may sit in Salesforce and such from that side. And that's a sort of simple. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's a simple kick in the box sort of type of thing.
So there are specific businesses that are reseller businesses. That's their entire business model. They find software and other solutions, and then they sell it to their customers. And they are professional middlemen. They sit in the middle. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's all they do all day long. Yeah.
How do you go about finding them?
So the easiest way to answer that is, let's give you an example. So I'm working with a vendor, a SaaS vendor in the HR sector. The first place I would start is go, let's look at a competitive vendor. So I'm in HR. Let's go and look at what Workday do. Okay, Workday do similar sort of stuff, lots of functionality, but X, Y, Z. Let's see who Workday's partners are. So we could start there. That's one thing. Is like, okay, let's go and have a look. Workday, I've got 200 partners, X amount are in the UK. I know they're selling that product, but it gives me like a lookalike audience. So I can understand definitely a partnership opportunity in this sector.
Sorry, and just to clarify that, so how would you find Workday's 200 partners? Are they listed on LinkedIn? Are they listed on the website somewhere? Like, where would you go to find that?
Just listed on the website. So big enterprises normally like to do logo shine. So it's like, here's all our partners, are all great. Or like in Microsoft, don't talk to us, go and talk to a partner. And they'll list the partner, and you can look for them by geography and about the services they can deliver and stuff. The other component is, and this is always the low-hanging fruit, and it's like the gold, is go and ask your customers. You've already got customers. More than likely, they've got a service partner, a professional services partner, an integration partner, a team that have done stuff, or your customers have bought software and it's been through a reseller that may be aligned to the sector you're in. That is always the gold. Nobody, well, not nobody, because I always tell everybody, but it's just, it's the low hanging fruit. It's like, have you asked your customers if they've got any partners that work with them? No? Right, okay. But why don't you just go and ask that? Because that's, you've just sold the product to them. It may be they've not took our services for a reason because they've got a service partner. Great. So why don't we go and talk to their service partner? Because he's got other customers as well. He's got a big sales team. He's got mouths to feed. There's that. And then there is an aspect. So again, it sort of comes from just, I suppose, common sense in my side, but just because I've done the role so long, it's like, right, okay, if we're going to sell a product like customer service, it doesn't really fit Magento too much because it's an e-commerce platform. It's great. But at the end of it, they may only have 2 customer service agents. So nobody's really interested in that. Google, I'm selling thousands of email seats with Google Drive, all that sort of aspect. Then I've already got customers that are using the platform. As a reseller, I'm looking for value-added services as a VAR to attach to that, to my customer, so I can keep on making revenue and service revenue. So a customer service platform is like, oh, that makes sense then, because a lot of customer service starts inside an email, and then people move out of that into spreadsheets, and then they move out of that to actually a customer service platform. So it's about, I suppose, understanding who you're selling to directly, and then looking around that and defining what your partner profile persona is. From that, that's some jiggery pokery magic in the background, but it's that aspect. And then once you've defined that, then go and test the market and understand what's your objective. I want to sell, or I want to do services, or I want to do both. And then go and talk to some of those partners that are not necessarily partnered with your competitors, or they could be, but they're looking, your product may offer a small bit of functionality that the main features don't. It's like, right, okay, we can sell that.
So you're almost approaching it the same way that in the same way that you would come up with an ideal customer persona.
Yeah.
For the end customer that you want to send to, you take the same approach, but what you're trying to find is like, okay, what does our ideal partner persona look
So,
like?
yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, okay. Because I know there's you go to any startup advice and they'll say, talk to your customer, talk to your customer, talk to your customer. But I don't know anyone who's ever talked to a customer and asked them the question, what other software tools do you use, and do you buy any of them through a reseller? That's a
Yeah.
question that I don't think ever gets asked. I've never asked that question
No.
before.
And I can always remember at Zendesk when I raised this, and I sort of got these. The the SDRs and the sales team were quite young; they didn't even know what channel was, so I was educating them on that. And it was just do this one thing for me. That's all you got to do. We're across multiple territories. Just please go and ask who are the other partners, who are the other resellers, who else are they working with. But what it did for them, it just opened up a different line of conversation. Oh, okay. So you've got DocuSign in there. Oh, so you're signing documents. All right, okay. Oh, we integrate with DocuSign. Did you know that? Or, whatever it may be. It's like, oh, all right. So let's talk about an integration. So suddenly professional services are then involved. And it's that secret PS type model as well then. PS always knows what's going on in the business. And once they're in there, like, they come back to the sales guy and go, I've got a deal for you. Yeah, they're doing this. So it's been
Right,
smart.
and it feeds on itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did get that same sort of look of, I don't get why we're asking customers this. I still don't get it. It's like, just ask it naturally and you'll get some responses back, and let's see where we get to. And that's how predominantly it came up with Google as being a really good choice for resellers, because there was a high level of Google reseller relationships in there already, because they were already selling the email and the drive and all that sort of thing. So, even something as simple as like, who do you use for your email services? Google. All right, okay. Do you have a partner that delivers that for you? Oh yeah, it's Bob. Bob does that. Perfect. Let's have a chat with Bob then.
And it goes from there. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
How do you structure an agreement with a reseller or a channel partner?
So there's two models. We'll concentrate on reseller, because you can have a referral agreement or a distributor agreement. A reseller is really simple in terms of the sort of legalities. So when you've got a reseller partner selling on behalf of you as a vendor, the structure is a couple of things. One, they buy a discounted price, and people always get caught up about this. It's like, we're giving margin away. I'm not even going to go there. Just shut up now. It's like, right, okay. So we'll say you're a small SaaS company, so you're going to give 30% away. So a $100 seat, you're going to sell at $70 to the reseller. Great. So they buy at $70. And the other obligation they have is to pass through your service level agreement, your SLA, your standard terms, pass that through to the client as part of their contract. And then that reseller is contractually obliged to you to pay your invoice for the $70 a seat. You are not contractually, if that customer goes bust, disappears and doesn't pay them, nothing to do with you. The reseller's got to pay you your payment terms from that side. Normally the reseller would do a level 1 support ticket. So it'd come and say, oh, I can't log in, or my password, whatever it may be. And then you triage it, and the vendor would do level 2, level 3, etc. So you'd have that agreement from that side. And then through that partnership, you would, as a vendor, provide them with training, marketing materials, webinars, etc. The clarity is, and where people get really sort of in the twist, is that customer is the customer of the reseller. Salespeople go mental about this because it's like, oh, Bob, your reseller has just signed up Spotify. Oh, well done. Flipping great. I'm getting paid. Awesome. Yeah, but I want to speak to Spotify. Tell them I'm going to speak to... No. Contractually, it is not our customer. Our customer is Bob the reseller. We've sold him a license at $70. Anything, yeah. The only time that customer passes back is if there was a contractual breach, you bring the customer back. But it has to be really clear that that SaaS sales organization suddenly thinks they see these the licenses going out to Spotify that they can talk to them. No, they can in a constructive way if they work with the partner, but the customer belongs to the partner from a contractual obligation and from a communication obligation.
In that example, let's say Spotify, you got talking to Spotify, came through with a support request. You got talking to them. You uncovered that they actually need some professional services that you might also be able to provide as well, but the reseller doesn't. Like, if the reseller provide those services, would you be contractually obliged to say, actually, you need to go back and talk to Bob about this, or would you say, actually, yeah, we can provide that service? Like, then, because that's getting pretty murky. How do you navigate that? Like,
Always goes back to Bob the
Okay,
reseller. Yeah,
okay,
it's
yeah,
his customer. So
yeah,
even though you may have better PS services or Bob may not have the full capabilities, in the middle you'd have somebody like me who's a partner manager and go, Bob's my customer, he's my reseller. And it's like, Bob, can you deliver this? No, I can do about 50% of it. All right, okay, well let's do a co-sell. You do that 50, we'll do that 50. You be the invoice, the contractor, and own legalities back to back legalities. And we'll come in and provide the resource to do that. So I've done that on a couple of occasions. And also what I used to do a lot and still do is, as companies grow, is get a partner council. So get all partners together, but also get them cross-selling and working together. So you may have a partner that can do front-end UI, UX type stuff, which was a biggie at Zendesk. I want it red, not green. I want this button there. And get them. So resellers were buying services off each other from that side as well. Again, helped us. We could focus our service delivery to our top tier clients where we were getting revenue against it. But also, as a SaaS founder, you're looking at, okay, I'm looking at my forward projection. My operational costs are the most expensive piece, which is people. How many do you want to be a service company? No, because any investor doesn't want to see that you're a 40% service business. They want to see that MRR just like chunking its way, doing the nice hockey stick. And any salesperson will always give away, if they're a smart salesperson, will always discount or give away services rather than MRR. It's the crux from that side. So it's always a nice thing because it's like, actually, let's work with our partners because they can be our service lead. We can reduce our operational cost, not be a service-led company, be a software-led company.
right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And how do you motivate the resellers to drive the sales for you? I mean, if you're not the only thing that they're reselling, if there's 20 different products that they're reselling, how do you get kind of the mind share and the focus among their sales reps to be, actually, I want you to push our product or our service a little bit
So
more?
again, as you get a sort of a more mature program, you'd have this thing called market development funds. So anytime a sale was made by a reseller, a margin of that sale would go into a pot, and you'd pass that pot back for them to do market development, so outbound calling, webinars, etc. When you're a scrappy startup and you're inside Zendesk or wherever, and there's like no other people apart from Nick, the marketing guy, you make things up basically. But you support them in terms of, again, it could be doing lead pass back. So if you've got some leads that are good for them to get them incentivized, you can pass those back. You do joint webinar activities with them, make sure the sales guys are trained. And again, like we talked about earlier, go and if they're in, if you're in the UK and they're in the UK, go and socialise with them. I just had a conversation this morning about this, and we'd set up, this sort of partner type activity and thing going on, where there was a vendor that was bringing all their salespeople, their customer success people, marketing people into their one event, and partners could go along to it. And it's not my client, so I didn't go. But it's the best opportunity to go and have a drink with somebody and get absolutely slaughtered, because that's that's how you can
business is done.
It is. It's just, I know it's a very UK thing. We don't go out drinking at lunchtime anymore, but it's just that aspect of suddenly that vendor that has got a relationship with that partner and knows the 5 sales guys, knows the customer success team, and like, oh yeah, we had a great time, didn't we? It's like, yeah, great, yeah. Remember you said you're going to introduce me to that customer at Vodafone? Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'm seeing them next week. Why don't you just come for a drink with us? Don't bother. Just come. Yeah, it breaks those barriers down. So essentially, indirect is the same as direct. It's just you've got a third party. So you're not selling to the customer, you're selling to that vendor and to that reseller, and it's building that relationship with them. It's a relationship sale all the way through. So it's the standard sort of stuff that you do, but with a reseller rather than with a customer.
So it's not just this one and done, great, cool, here's the resale agreement, signed, fantastic, we don't have to touch this ever again. No, you're constantly feeding
I wouldn't be able to consult or have a job or do anything if it was that. No. I mean, there is that. People do that, and that's vanity contracts. So basically, it's like it's a little bit like Microsoft. Microsoft say we've got 100,000 resellers globally. Now, what they have is 100,000 contracts with probably like the standard principle. 20,000 of them doing a transaction over time, and that may be. Then you narrow it down to 500 of them are doing ongoing transactions on a monthly basis, and the rest are doing sporadic ones every quarter, and then some are just doing one a year.
Are there any other common mistakes or pitfalls that people make when it comes to channel partnerships and resellers?
Here's my big bugbear, and I have this on when I'm trying to educate people about channel. So always treat your channel, whether it's not a reseller or a distributor, whatever model it is, treat them as if they work for the company. What tends to happen is people think, oh, we've got this reseller now, it's great, let's sign them up, fantastic, great. But don't tell them anything. We're doing a feature release, we can't tell them about that. Oh, we're doing a price increase. Oh, you can't tell them, no, it'll get out. It's under NDA. Yeah, that's why we've got a relationship, we've got an NDA contract with them. What happens is, and it really annoys me, is that it's dead simple. Is I'm a SaaS founder. I've built my company up. I'm doing well. I've took my revenue. Right, okay. The investor has said I need to hire salespeople. Great. So I'm going to hire 10 salespeople. Boom, I've got 10 salespeople on board. What am I going to do? I'm going to onboard them. I'm going to train them. I'm going to give them all the resources they need to be successful. I'm going to invest in them. Why would you not do that with a channel partner? A lot of people think, I've got my channel partnership. I've got a contract now. Can't tell them that. We can't invite them to sales meetings. We can't invite them to onboarding. It's like, no, they're part of the company. There's a contractual aspect there that says they're a reseller, but it may be they're only selling our product and 2 others, which are all complementary. And that's the worst mistake any SaaS company makes, is treating their channel partnerships as if the third level citizens that shouldn't somewhere. It's just, it just really annoys me. It really does. Because you wouldn't invest that much money in a salesperson and then not give them the tools or the information for success. Just leave them in the corner and hope it's all going to be okay. So what I used to do is, as I brought a new onboard channel partner onboarded, we stopped doing this after a while. It's all going to sound glamorous, isn't it? But anybody that joined Zendesk would go to Dublin and do 4 days of training. So in documentation of like who Zendesk is and what the product is and messaging. And of course, a reseller wouldn't send all their team, but I'd say the option is every month in Dublin, you get a chance to send somebody across, not all the time, because there's going to be some stuff that's just not relevant and it's sensitive as such, but maybe do 2 days of it. And then you get to meet people that sit in customer success, marketing, sales, and then you know who people are as well. 100% of my partners invested people who come from Israel, from Malta, from Northern Europe, Southern Spain, everywhere, just to have those couple of days and see the value in it. And it made a massive difference. It took me about 6 months to persuade the company to let me do it. And once they got it, it was like, oh, great, yeah. Because now they've just indoctrinated. It was like they were part of the company. It's like, oh, yeah, I know to ring. I don't even have to ring Stu anymore. I just go straight through to the chap that I met that I went for a Guinness with in Dublin.
Right. Okay. I'm with you. Is if you're going to make that kind of an investment though, because obviously it takes time and money to train channel like resellers as well as your own sales team. How long do you typically make one of those reseller agreements go for? Is it 12 months? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Like what does that kind of duration look like?
Again, so they normally just start out as 12-month recurring contracts because it's a bi-directional relationship. It's not just you investing. It's about, like I say, that partners sent people across to Dublin, or they've invested time, and then also they're doing outbound marketing as well. So that when they've signed that contract, there's probably been anywhere from 6 to 8 months of conversations and persuasion and negotiation to get them to that point. The minute they sign, literally they're like, right, okay, let's get started. Give me all the resources. Let's go now. And they're not looking at an end game in terms of it's a 3-year, 5-year agreement. So I see now. So I left Zendesk, I think it was like 7 years ago or 6 years ago. And we had a reunion about a couple of months ago. Very tiring evening it was. I was just chatting about the sort of number of partners and such that I signed up in my first 6 months that are now still with Zendesk, that I still have conversations with them. So they've been a Zendesk partner over 10 years with a 12-month recurring contract, if that makes sense, because they've invested as much as Zendesk had invested into that relationship.
I've got a couple more questions for you. First one is relating this back to podcasts. So I was talking to a guy the other day who said that he's using podcasts in a really interesting way. So he's a guest on podcasts, but he also has his own podcast that he launched after a while. He built up a bit of a name for himself, being a guest on others for a while. And when he hosts his own podcast, the kind of guests that he's looking for are business owners that he wants to partner with, or people that he eventually wants to sell to. And he uses his podcast as basically a way of sort of flying under the radar a little bit and getting straight through to the decision maker at a company. Is that something that you've seen? Is that a way that you've seen people use podcasts before, or is that?
I love this. Yeah. So I was working with a company under my consulting. So basically, to anybody that's listening, I've got about 3 million hats. One, I have to consult to pay some money to put into my software company to grow it, so I don't have to consult. It's the standard dilemma of a founder, isn't it? And one of the companies I was consulting with, I was trying to get the founder there, because he's got really good stories. He's been around a bit and stuff, to be a guest on podcasts, and obviously using PodcastHawk and etc. And we were talking. It's like, oh, I just don't really fancy that sort of thing. And then it was like, well, the other option is we built these channel partnerships, and it wasn't really sort of moving forward because it's a bit of a tight space. He didn't have the resources to put into it. And the SDRs were doing outreach and cold emails and standard thing. And it was, why don't we just do a do a B2B podcast, which is when your SDRs are reaching out, not the standard thing of, oh, I've got this feature and it's really great and it's lovely, is like, we'd like you to be on our podcast. Come and tell us your story about what you do in the HR sector and blah, blah, whatever it was. The conversion on that, 100%, like literally people are like, oh, I'll sign up for that. So it's exactly that model. That's again, it's a secret sauce, right? It's a secret sauce. So what I tend to say to people is, be a guest first, get warmed up to it, Get used to public speaking and all that. Get your infrastructure set up, because being a host, you've got the hardest job. I'm simple. I'm going for my tea after this. I don't have to worry. You've got to do the editing and all that. So I say to anybody, it's not simple. You can get larger agencies to do it for you, but that model of reach out to your target customer base to invite them on your B2B podcast about the sector that you're involved in, asking them questions that are relevant, but also insightful to you. And at the end of it, it's sponsored by you as the SaaS company, and it's little push. And I've seen that gain a lot more traction over the last 6 months. People sort of start to twig onto that a lot more, because it's just a warm way. And the I can't tell you his conversion rate, but the conversion rate is good. Let's just say
good.
It's literally, it's like an outbound message to a podcast to a converted sale. Yeah. Because again, it's like you've built that relationship with a customer before the customer. You've sharing their story, but also that customer sharing it out to their network. You've got free reach into their network. It's like, and they're in the same sector that you want to sell into. So again, we use the word Bob, the name Bob. Bob from XYZ company is well respected in that sector, and he's sharing his podcast about him being on this podcast. Yeah, suddenly it's like, okay, so that's XYZ SaaS company. Oh, right. Okay, I'm going to have a look at that because Bob's been on it. Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah, it's just secret sauce. Total secret sauce.
But the starting point is get on other people's podcasts first, get used to it, build a bit of an audience, use that as some credibility that you can leverage, and then maybe think about using it as a B2B channel inbound. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Stewart, second last question. Do you have any other advice that you would give to a SaaS founder just starting out? Especially, maybe they're interested in channel partnerships, maybe they're interested in podcasts, maybe they're kind of juggling that whole, I'm still doing a bit of consulting, but also building the software business at the same time, like that kind of stage. What would you say to them?
I'm just going to be pretty boring and say, have a really good calendar. I can't remember. I can never remember the word when I try and sort of describe it. But contextual switching, that's the thing. So as a founder, if you're doing, you've got a great idea and it's like, right, okay, I'm either doing a side hustle because I've got a proper job, or I'm a consultant doing something and I've set it up. Either way, it's contextual switching into it. The best advice I would say is have a really organized calendar that blocks out time, because my human brain and most people's can't cope with contextual switching. It's like, right, okay, this morning I'm doing channel stuff. I'm talking to companies about channel and resellers. And then 5 minutes later, I'm switching to, I've got to build a marketing campaign for PodcastHawk. My brain's like, oh, that's a bit dull. Let's go and eat some biscuits instead. That's more fun. It's hard, isn't it? So I think being very organized helps you plan then as a founder of, right, okay, what's the direction of this company? Because if I'm going to put time and effort into it, I'm going to invest that time to focus on that, whether it's a day or half a day or whatever it may be, just on that. It can't be, which is what I used to try and do, was, I'm doing my channel consulting. I've got a couple of clients. It's great. And I try and sort of manage 2 or 3 clients, and they'd be in different sectors. And my brain was like, no, brain says no, just switch off. It's too hard. So I know it's pretty dull and it's pretty common sense, but I think that time management is, when I spoke to a lot of sort of founders in startup land, was at Sun and Oracle and that sort of thing. Their idea of time management was, I've got a meeting booked for coffee with Bob, and I'm going to see Bill for another coffee. And it's like, right, okay, that time is valuable. Quantify it. What's the outcome? What is the objective of meeting Bob? What's the outcome? And how much time are you going to put into it before that meeting? Great. Was it of value? And your calendar helps you structure that, because you just put it in there and then you look at it and go, I mean, now we've got Zoom and all that. It's just a bit rubbishy, isn't it? It's not the same sort of thing. But I'm still the same. It's like, do I need to meet Bob? It's 15 minutes of my life. What am I getting? And it sounds a bit sort of selfish, but what am I going to get from it? Is it of value? No,
Mm.
actually, I'm not doing it at that time because that's my PodcastHawk time. So I'm not interrupting that to have a call about channel stuff. That's the way I sort of look at things. If I was a
Mm.
founder starting off, is really sort of be aggressive about your time management,
Mm.
reduce your contextual switching, and just be accepted of, don't do lots of meetings for meeting's sake. If you're going to meet somebody, what's the objective? And be
Yeah.
honest with yourself. Like, I'm meeting this PR lady on Thursday, and it's around PodcastHawk. I've put the time in, but I've been honest going, this is probably going to be a bit more of a marketing type message than a sales type message. It's going to reach out to her. It's a bit of a connotation sort of thing. So I'm not thinking of it from that side. So yeah, half an hour, that's fine. And it means I get out of the house and go meet a human being. Great. So, it's setting those objectives around it.
I have a really good friend. So the only danger with that is, I think, as a startup founders, we can get so sucked into that. We try and optimize our time probably a
Yeah.
little bit too much. I had a friend recently, and I said, "Oh yeah, I absolutely want to meet up with you. Yeah, just send me a calendar invite." And she was mortified. She goes, "Ryan, I'm a friend of yours. Like, if you want to meet up for dinner, I'm not going to send you a bloody calendar invite. Like, you do that. You put it in there yourself. But let's just be a bit human about this." Okay, probably fair enough.
Oh, yeah, one final note on that as well, just to go back to human beings again, is that I've pushed back a lot on that lately in terms of let's sort of put a Zoom link or a calendar invite and stuff. And with some things, it's like, literally, I've got this thing called a phone, and it's got a number, and you can just ring me because you're my mate. Why am I setting up a calendar invite to have a chat about the football or whatever? So
It's so easy to slip into that too. But yeah, I need
it,
to, catch myself
yeah,
sometimes when
yeah,
I find
because
myself doing it.
I think over the last couple of years we've been not programmed, but it's just become natural to do that, hasn't it? And I've found it really hard to switch out of it. But it's just with a couple of people, I've just been like, no, just WhatsApp me, ring me, whatever sort of thing, because it's that same thing. Because it is, you just start to treat your friends as business partners in a sense, or business people, and going, put an invite in so we can have a chat. Yeah, what's wrong? You used to ring me. It's like, what's wrong with that? So yeah, we need to get out of that habit. It's hard, but yeah.
Absolutely. Stuart, for anyone who's listening or watching who's interested in PodcastHawk or in getting in contact with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
So I'll send you the link through to put in the description. But yeah, podcasthawk.com, perfect website there. You'll go, and any messages that come through there come through to me, Stewart at podcasthawk.com. Spam the hell at me if you want to. It's fine from that side. And then also, I think sort of a good place just to try and get a connection is just on LinkedIn as well. So we can share that link.
Absolutely.
I'm totally open to people if they want to have a conversation. I did say about time management, but if they want a little bit more, I suppose, information on channel and podcasting, the benefits, I'm happy to talk about that, because the more I can educate people, the better.
Fantastic. I'll put all those links in the description so people can find you more easily if they want to. Stuart, it's been a pleasure, buddy. Thank you so much for coming on board, and we'll speak again soon.
No, it's cool. Great chatting to you, Ryan. Awesome time.